produced one. Today I'd like to tell you about estuaries. Estuaries are areas where a river meets the ocean, fresh water running into salt water. And it's a condition called brackish. The river is also bringing down nutrients into the ocean, and it's one of the richest ecosystems that we have on the coast. Along the coastal areas, the richest, most nutrient-rich areas that are present are the estuaries, and they're under threat because people like to build in estuaries as well because of the nice conditions of them. They have more fish populations than the open ocean does. They have bird populations. The plants are different because of the nutrient-rich and salty, semi-salty conditions. The estuary we're looking at today is the Englishman River Estuary on the east coast of Vancouver Island at the city of Parksville. And what we're looking at the present time are the mud banks in the estuary. This is where there's all of the great concentration of nutrients in this soil that is brought down by the river from the land. And if you look carefully at it, you can see there's mud banks in one spot, and then farther over you can see there's vegetation growing on an area where there's gravel. And situations are like this because of the force of the river. As the river comes down gently in a channel, eventually it deposits out the mud particles, the very fine material, and then farther over in areas where there's a heavy flow, it's bringing down the gravel and the rocks. What we're looking at the present time is a wild rose. Wild roses are very common along the coast here. This particular one, which is the one we frequently find in these sort of drier areas, is the Nootka rose. So it grows all along the higher ground just above the estuary. And you can see the little red fruits are the typical hips of roses. What we're looking at the present time is the upper part of the estuary, just below the shrub zone where the roses grow. And you can see how sandy it is at this particular spot. And growing in the sand is one of our common plants that grows on beach areas. This is called the silver burrweed, and you notice it's growing in sand. And it's called a burrweed because the little seeds have little spines all over them to attach to animals to disseminate to other areas. Growing along with the burrweed is a plant called a gumweed. This is the Puget Sound gumweed. It's called a gumweed because it has sticky leaves to protect itself from desiccation and from getting eaten by things. And it's one of our nice showy flowers that grow in these sandy areas all along the coast. What we're looking at the present time is the Baltic rush. Now, rushes and sedges are very common in wetland areas. This one, the Baltic rush, grows all across the northern hemisphere, including our coasts here and along coastal areas. On the top are the little flower clusters. It's wind pollinated. A lot of things where there's a lot of wind are wind pollinated. They don't depend upon insects. And now I take out my handy magnifier to have a closer look at it, to see if my identification is correct. And yes, it's the Baltic rush. Associated or fairly closely with the saltgrass is another salt-loving plant. This is the sea asparagus or glasswort, and it has no leaves left. The leaves have disappeared, and it does its photosynthesis with the stems. And it's called sea asparagus because some people use it as a vegetable. But again, I'm a little skeptical of doing this because it only grows in a specific area, and we haven't got enough of this material for everybody to start eating sea asparagus salads. But its taste is incredibly salty. And again, it takes in the salt water and eliminates the salt through special glands. What I'm indicating right now is the fact that this plant is either in flower or seed. And it's wind pollinated like so many things in estuaries where insects can't easily get to. It's difficult to tell if it's in seed or flower because you have to take your lens and look so closely because it doesn't have big showy flowers. But this is what it looks like when it is flowering. You notice the little grass I'm holding. It looks a little different from most other grasses. The leaves, the blades are all in one plane. You don't see many grasses that grow like this. This particular one is the salt grass, and it's very characteristic of estuary and beach areas. And we'll have a closer look, or a more distant look, to see how it grows shortly. This is a more distant shot of what the salt grass looks like. This is what you're going to see as you walk into an estuary area, this sort of bluish green color. And saltgrass only grows in salty areas, either along the seashore in a place like this or in the interior part of the province along the alkaline lakes, because it does require salty areas, and it has special glands so that it can take in water and eliminate the salt. And this particular estuary of the Englishman River is protected now by the Nature Trust of British Columbia, who have purchased it and are maintaining it. Also, the Arrowsmith Naturalist Club of Parksville is removing invasive plants and helping to restore the area. And so this particular estuary is a good news story. If you went back 30, 40 years or so, this area was a log storage area for the logging industry, and it was nowhere near as pristine looking as it is at the present time, which seems rather strange because we have so many problems. But in actual fact, we are gradually starting to preserve areas of this nature, and hopefully we can turn the balance.